Hello and welcome, I'm Ray. I'm here today in my craft room for Riverside Crafts, and we're going to be looking at Cosmic Shimmer's watercolour inks. And I have to say I quite like them. So I'm just going to move the camera so you can see what we've been doing and what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to show you first some of the work that I have done with them. So as you can, on the butterflies, you can see that they blend really well. They come in these really snazzy little bottles. Sorry I've got gloves on today, but they do stain my fingers quite badly, and I've got eczema, so I'm trying not to get them too messy. So they come in these snazzy, look like little what they're called, nail polish pots, and inside you have a dripper. Okay, so you can control a little bit how much you put where, but it's sort of by a drop. Okay, but they blend beautifully from one colour into the other, and they're really nice. Make the pearlescent, and the amount of mica in them is absolutely amazing. They really do shine a lot when you work with them. They're nice to paint with. They blend and move beautifully, which is quite nice. Again, you can paint with them. You can marble, so you can do different backgrounds. You can do sort of like wet into wet techniques, wet into dry techniques. There are lots and lots of options to play with. So we're going to have a look at that today. I've got a few backgrounds here that I've made to show you. And bits. The watercolour inks come in two. You get a pearlescent and a non-pearlescent. And they behave a little bit differently when they're added to water. The normal ones, the plain ones will actually will spread out more than what the pearlescent ones do. But you can probably see how much shine you get on the pearlescent ones. So the fact that they work differently is quite nice as well. But it's also, the mica is amazing. All right. Well, she'll do a pick-up technique. So the ink goes on the mat and I pick it up. I'll show you how to stamp with it. So you can stamp with the ink. The ink will blend beautifully. You can use it to do texture work with bubble wrap or with the baby wipes. Just dropping it as it is straight onto card. Marbling in all sorts of colours, which I shall look at with you today. So that's some of the things that we can do with it. It's a really nice thing to do when you first get your colours home, is to put them down and work out what colours you've got and look at what they look like before you start playing with them. See which ones are going to work together. And you can probably see the mica still in some of these is absolutely amazing. Okay, I've put out in a palette because it's just going to make it easier for me to use. Okay, and the first thing that we're going to do is a wet into wet. All right, that basically means I'm going to put water down and then I'm going to add more water to it. So I've got my water. By the way, all the stamps today are by Woodware. And it's all been stamped using VersaFine Black Onyx because it's just a nice way of using them. Now, if you notice, I'm just putting the water literally on where I want it. Because if I put it everywhere, what's going to happen is it's going to move. I'm going to use a little bit of the purple. And as you can see, look, it will start to blend out. There we go. See how it moves quite nicely? And that's because I've put the water down first. And if you notice, it's not particularly bleeding out of where I've been because that area is dry. If I had got the whole of it wet, I would end up with it going everywhere. Okay, now I'll show you a couple of other options to help you if you're a bit more like me and you end up with it going everywhere anyway. As you can see, as soon as you put water on, it will start to move it. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of a tealy colour to drop in. Okay, drop it in here. A bit more water probably. Let it blend off. And you can see that works really nicely and very easily. So it gives you a really nice light sort of colour and bit. So one of the things I will say though is the ones that have got mica in, the pearlescent ones, when you first use them, they have got so much mica in that the little ball bearing that they put in there to help keep it moving actually ends up clogged in. So you might need to stick a cocktail stick in and give it a stir, because there is so much mica in them, you won't believe it. It is amazing. Right, so I'll put that one to the side. This one has been heat embossed. I don't know if you can see that it's got a bit of a shimmer on it. Now, if you are somebody who finds that they struggle to keep things in their lines, this will help, because you can put your bit of water down wherever you want, but it won't go where you haven't passed the lines of what you've done. So it's going to stay in your little pockets. Can you see how it stays in those lines? It's not bleeding out from one to the other, okay? Unless you take it across them, it's not going to go. All right, which gives you a much more control of where you're putting your ink. So if you're somebody who's not so sort of sure about how you're going to colour things and how it's going to work, heat embossing will help, because it just means you're going to keep it in an area you want it in. It's not going to bleed along. Can you see how it doesn't bleed in from one colour to the next? And that's because it's heat embossed. Okay, so that it creates its own little wells for the ink to dry into. Okay, and it can give you a very different look from what you would normally sort of get from when you're using an ink that's going to go from one to the other, because you don't get the blending in the same way, which is quite nice, because you get a different look. Okay, so when you're using your heat embossed work, it will give you a very different type of finish, if you see, because your ink is going to stay where you put it in your wells, whereas when I'm doing it with just on the card as it is, it doesn't go. Okay, right, so you can see how that stays where you put it. So if you're someone who's unsure about where it goes, to keep it in place, heat embossing. The other thing you can do is use drawing gum, which is this stuff here. It's by Pebeo. It's water repellent when it's dry, but when it's still wet, you can put it on with your paintbrush and you can wash your paintbrush out. I don't know of another drawing gum that allows you to do it. It's often used in watercolour because it's quite good. And the other thing about this one is it leaves a blue. Can you see the blue around the edge? So you actually know what you're doing and you can see where it is. This will stop it from bleeding out onto your clean card. So if you don't want it on the card that you've got, do a greeny one, outside, so you want to keep your colour literally just inside your butterfly and you want the background to stay white, this will allow you to do that. Okay, so you then can do your painting and adding your colours in where you want them to go. Bit of lemon, let's have a look. Should we add a little bit of an orangey colour? There we go, this is the orange. And that, and we can just sort of give it all a bit of a, but it won't come out of the edge of where I'm working because it's got that solution over it, so it's water repellent, so it gives you a nice place to finish things off and not have to end up with stuff absolutely everywhere. So if you're a tatty or a messy crafter, this helps to keep what you're painting where you want it to be. Okay, you're not going to end up with it everywhere else. So when that's dry, you can then rub off this and you'll have a nice bright white outline, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so you can see how that works. Yep, we need to do that one. Okay, now this time I've done it the opposite way around, so my little ladybird there is covered with the drawing gum so that I don't end up with it in a mess. I'm going to spritz my sheet of card. It's watercolour card that I'm using, just in case you were wondering. It does work differently depending on which cards you use. Okay, right, I'm going to do a background now. I'm just going to always give them a really good shake before you use them. Okay, because it does make a huge difference. And if you can't hear that ball bearing, you haven't shook them enough. Can you see how it bleeds out, how it just sort of spreads off? Okay, so that's that colour. And what other colour should we put with that? That's the jade one, isn't it? So I think possibly the peacocky one, which is going to be... That's not the one I was thinking of. That one. This one's slightly bluey, not a lot. But as you can see, we can have it going, doing what we like. We can spritz it again, put more water in, spread it out. Okay. We can use our paintbrush to mix the colours in and drag them where you think you might want them, which is quite a nice thing to do. You can drag your colours around and you can put them all the way around the edge of the ladybird. And the ladybird, when this is dry, will be still white when we've took the rubber off. Okay. So we've now got a really nice drippy background for our ladybird to go on. If you think, oh, I haven't got enough colour, what's come off it, you can add to the edges and it will help it. Okay, and I'm going to put that to one side to dry for a minute. Where I'm putting it in this one, that one there, so it doesn't drip on everything. Now you can see I've actually got some nice bits of colour on my mat. Rather than just waste that, I will drop other colours in with it. Okay, to brighten it up. And using a piece of plain cardstock, which I should have some somewhere. Where will I put it? Here we go, this one. This is mixed media cardstock, so it's a little bit different. I can lay it down directly onto the inks, giving myself a very different feel to if I had just picked it up. Okay, so that's what you call a pick-up print. So you've got the ink on your mat and you're picking it up to make yourself a background. Gives you a nice sort of different background to use, which is quite pretty. So put that one over there to dry. That one needs to dry as well. I've got stuff everywhere today. But there we go. So I'm going to clean that off for a moment. Okay. So clean up the mat. I use biodegradable wipes now because I found some and they work really well, so I get to use them for all sorts of things. Okay, now let's do some background bits. Okay, I think we're going to do some marbling to start with, give you something different to have a look at, just because I think it would be a nice thing to do. I'll just give this a shake. This is shaving foam. Okay, so it's dead exciting. I'm just going to spray some in the bottom of my tray here. There we go, that will do us for a minute. And I'm just going to push it down into the tray so that I've got the bottom of my tray covered with shaving foam. This makes your paper smell absolutely wonderful when you've done it, I have to say. Right, so I've got my shaving foam in there, fairly levelish for a minute. There we go. Just need to clean my gloves off for a minute, because we're going to have stuff everywhere. Right, that's that done. Now, when I'm doing this, you need a cocktail stick. And this will last and do lots and lots of prints, but we're only going to do a couple today, just so that you get an idea of where we're going. Give it a shake. Can you hear the ball bearing? There we go. That helps quite a lot. If you've got questions and bits, I will answer them at the end, because I can't actually see what's coming on the screen because I'm using it as the phone and as my camera, so I can't read it at the same time, mainly because I haven't got my glasses on like I should do. So as you can see, I'm just dropping some ink onto the shaving foam. Okay, I'll start off with a couple of colours, and what I'm going to do is just pull and mix those inks through. Just gently. That's what I'm doing, is pulling the inks through. Okay, and I'm going to go both ways. Might need a bit more ink on there, but we'll see. All right, so now I've sort of mixed it up, not doing too much one way or the other. Okay, I'm going to put my card in, push it down. Okay, I use my cocktail stick to lift it back up again, because then I don't quite make so much mess. And you end up with a lot of ink and bits all over your, what was done with it. I should have given this scraper. Here it is. Okay, and now all I do is I take off that's left on there. So I go and I scrape it off. And that'll be my first print. And my first print is never as good as I want them to be. It always looks like I've missed bits. Okay, I don't know why, but they always do. I've tried different ways of doing it, but it always ends up with it mixed a bit. So I'll do this next time. As you can see now, I've got stripes of colour more. Okay, and again, I'm going to use and I'm going to go through it, going up and down. And I sort of do the wiggles going across it as well, because I find it gives me a bit of a different pattern. So I've done my wiggles. I'm going to get my piece of cardstock, put it in again, lay it down, put my cocktail stick underneath on that. I'm going to scrape this one off and see what we've got. Now you can start to see the marbling coming through. Okay, could do with some more brighter colours, I think. So I'm just going to do a couple more with some brighter colours, so it's a bit more obvious. Give it a shake. I'm just going to drag these around a minute. You can see that they've quite definitely got colour in it. Okay, cocktail stick again, up and down. This is one of those techniques that is really good to do on those days where you don't know what to do when you come in the craft room, and you can do all of these sort of prints, and you'll end up with all sorts of different colour backgrounds all ready for when you want them another day. And it's quite a nice way to sort of give yourself something to do when you're not sure where you want to go with it. This one will be more colourful because you can see it from the pickup. Right, I'm going to scrape that one off, but I'm not going to put it back in there because I want to take a print of you see how it's got in the box? I want to do a print on that, see what that looks like. Oh, there you go. Now you can see your marbling. Can you see all of the colours coming through? There we go. So that's done quite well. Let's just do that one quickly because I want to get that like so. And then this is my last print. So we're going to move on and do a couple of the next bits, because I want to show you what else you can do with it. This is good for die cutting as well. So if you've got like die cut butterflies and things, this works really well for giving you some really smart die cuts to use. So you can get some really, really smart backgrounds and play with it quite nicely. And then you can go and do, I'm going to just put that back to one side now. Put that out of the way for a moment. And I'll clean that up later. Okay, now, next bit. Okay, next bits I'm going to show you how I stamped with it and how I use it to blend with. And then hopefully we'll be able to go back to the ones that we put the colour all the way around the outside and rub off some bits so you can see what I mean by stopping the bleed in a way. Right, so first off we're going to do some blending. So I've got my ink in my quite happily here in my tray. I'm going to put some on the bottom of my sponge tool, blending tool. Now, if I use this directly straight away like that, it's just going to cause me some blobs, and it's not going to do a lot. So, but if I add a drop of glycerin in to it, and this is just bog standard normal glycerin that you get in the cooking bit in Tesco's. It's nothing fancy. It's not anything amazing, as you can see. It literally is just the stuff that you buy to do your cakes with. Okay, and you're going to rub it into your sponge. So now you're making yourself an ink pad, and this will allow you, can you see, to blend that colour, and the colour will then just allow you to blend it all over quite happily. So now you can have a toning ink to your marbling. So say like you've done your marbling with that colour and you want a background that's going to match it, you can do that quite happily. All right, so that's that bit. So you can see how it blends. The other thing that's really quite good is now, I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of that ink. If I daub this now over my butterfly that I've got here, okay, I'm just daubing it on over it with my nothing fancy. I can now stamp with it. Okay, and you'll get an impression very similar to what you get when you use your distress inks. So you get that nice sort of watery, sort of distressed look when you ink with that. So you've now made an ink pad that matches in with what you're looking at, with what you're doing. So far we've used them to do as paints. We've used them just to splodge a background nice and quickly. We've used them to do some marbling. We now can blend with them, and we're going to stamp with them. And that's just your little bottle so far. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is, we'll just check my bits. Oh yeah, we're going to do some background bits there. We're going to show you how the backgrounds, how the inks work slightly differently. So you can see how your inks work when they're both wet. So between pearlescent and your and the ones without the normal, the base ones. Right, so that one, they're both wet, as you can see. Got them both nice and wet. Okay, similar colour, pearlescent's going on. I'm not going to put many drops on, but just a couple, just so you can see. You see how it just sort of spreads out gently. Okay, similar colour in the water one, in the ones without the non-pearlescent. There we go, and see how much further they move by comparison to the pearlescent. Okay, so there's just a slight difference in how they move, just so that you're aware, is that how they will work and how they move is slightly different. You'll get a more marbled look from those, and you'll get a much more spidery, splashy look from your plain watercolour ones. So they work slightly differently, which is quite nice. And especially if you combine them, you get some really different sort of looks, which is quite good. So it's just a nice thing to know, is they do work slightly differently. Okay, so I've done those ones. Right. Let's just bring him back in a minute. We're just going to take off some excess colour. We've got a little bit much on there. Just give a tissue. There we go. It's not dried yet. We want it dry, don't we? Right. I'm just going to dry it quickly with the heat gun. It won't take long. Don't need it all dry, just dry around my ladybird. Okay, that's not too bad. Right, so now I can just gently with my finger, I think I might need a proper finger, not a glove finger, yeah I do, And you can just rub off your blending, your drawing gum. And now I can paint my brushes, my ladybird, a nice bright red. And she's on a really nice background. Okay, now just got to wait for my ladybird to dry. So you can see now how the drawing gum helps protect one bit from the other, which is quite a good thing to do. Okay, so I've done that bit and done that. Okay, and here you can see now that this is dry around the edge. So I'm just going to take the drawing gum off so you can see that there's been no bleed. You see how that gives you a really nice bright white edge with no bleeding now, which is quite good. Because the one I did originally, you've got bleed around the edge of it, so this is quite good just to show you. Except for the fact I've just now put a mucky fingerprint on it. But that gives you a cleaner, brighter edge round it, so you're not worrying about where you put your paint, which is your ink rather, not paint, is it? And that, okay, so that gives you quite a nice way of looking at it. It gives you a nice clean background. And you've used your drawing gum. Right, 2 other things I've got to show you, 2 background bits. So I just want to do just a couple of backgrounds with you. That one, and this one. Right, we're going to do a couple of backgrounds. We're going to do this first, so that you can see how I do this one, which is quite a nice technique. You got sort of like grooves of mica coming in it, which is quite nice. Right, okay, paper. Right, we're going to do, this is where I'm going to put it on the mat on in front of me, so it just gives me a nice splodgy finish, really. A little bit of ink, a bit of water, and my card to pick it up. And I'm just going to turn my card around as I go, filling in areas. But because I'm picking it up, I'm getting a texture turn up on my card, so it ends up looking like I've got a textured background, which is quite nice. Okay, you see how that gives you a textured look. Okay, let's put that over there a minute. Now I need a wipe, and I'm going to take my wipe and clean up here. And now I'm going to use my wipe to give me a background, and I'm just literally going to drop it on, so the ink is coming out off of my wipe onto the card, giving me a nice textury background. Again, something different, so you're not wasting anything. So that is how I did this. Okay, so the same technique for that one. Oh, turn the card over. Bubble wrap, blending sponge. See, look, the ink is still wet on there, and the reason the ink is wet is because it's got the glycerin in it, and it slows your drying time down, which then allows you to do other techniques with it. There you go. So that's a way of giving yourself a background. All right. Okay. Ouch. Fingers. So we've done some very nice marbling, which is lovely. I think it's going really well today with them. So we've done an awful lot with our inks today. We've got blending and stamping. We've done some painting. We've done making our own backgrounds. We've painted with the inks today, and we have so we've done quite a few different things, which is not bad when you're thinking you're buying a pot of ink. We've done lots of different bits with them. So I hope you've enjoyed today. It's been a little bit different because I wanted to show you how many different things you could do with the inks, rather than them just sort of, oh yeah, I've got these and I can do that with them. With your watercolour inks, they will do everything. Oh, that's one last thing I wanted to show you was, here it is, this one. Now, if you have a little tiny spritz bottle with a little bit of water in it, okay, choose a colour that you like. It's one of your favourites. Make sure it's well shook up. Drop some of it into your spritz bottle. A couple of pipettes, or normally enough. You don't want loads because it won't keep forever, because it's not got any of the preservatives in it. So you're just making yourself your own little spritz bottle up with some colour, which you can then use to colour and give yourself a spritzy background. And that, which is so you can make your own spritzes. You've made your own blending ink with them. We've done stamping with them. So, and we've done lots of different sorts of backgrounds. I hope you like them. These are the watercolour inks by Cosmic Shimmer, and they are really good fun to play with. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye bye.